Good morning, good morning. Good evening. Sorry about that. Good evening, everyone. We are this week's parsha is Parshas Tazria-Metzora, double parsha, Tavshin Pei Gimel, and tonight we will start from the beginning of the first parsha, which is Perek Yud Beis, chapter 12, Pasuk Aleph, verse 1. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe Lemar. Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, Daber el bnei Yisrael Lemar, speak to the children of Israel, saying, Isha ki Tazria, when a woman will give birth, the Yalda Zachar, or we can translate it as when a woman will produce seed, the Yalda Zachar, and she will give birth to a male, the Tam Ashiv Asyamim, she shall be impure for 7 days, Imenidas Devaisa Titma, as the days of when she menstruates, she will be impure. Uvayim Hashmini, on day 8, Yimol Basar Orlasai, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. And for 33 days she shall sit in her blood of purity. She shall not touch anything holy, not enter the sanctuary, not enter the Beis HaMikdash, and the days of her purity are completed. So, just quickly, the beginning of the parsha talks about the status of a woman who gives birth. If she gives birth to a boy, then the first week she is forbidden to her husband. After that first week is over, she is permitted to her husband. However, she at that point of time for 33 days, she will then be, even if she's bleeding, she'll be permissible to her husband. However, she will not be able to touch anything that's sanctified, like a sacrifice. She will not be able to go into the Beis HaMikdash, or go into the tabernacle, or to the temple. And after those 33 days, that's already when that once she will stop bleeding, then she'd be able to purify herself to be able again to go into the Beis HaMikdash. For a girl, it's 2 weeks and 66 days. Now, what I'm going to focus on is Pasuk Gimel. How in Pasuk Gimel, the Torah throws in the fact that the boy gets a bris, right? It starts off, if a woman will Tazria, she'll produce seed, give birth to a male, she's impure for 7 days. On day 8, the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. The obvious question is, if the Torah wouldn't have said this, that on day 8 he gets a bris, would we have known that on day 8 he gets a bris? Yeah. We certainly would have. So why does the Torah have to mention it here? So the commentary of the Arach Chaim gives a very interesting explanation. So really the way he asks the question is like this. He starts off saying, you just get it here. Right. So the question he asks is like this. We know that the Torah already spoke about the mitzvah of having a bris milah done, having a circumcision done, back in Parshas Lech Lecha when Hashem commanded Avraham, and that is where the mitzvah comes from. That was a mitzvah given to Avraham. Avram was given that mitzvah. All the other mitzvahs of the Torah, besides for what's called the Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, the 7 Noachide laws, all the other mitzvahs, Shabbos, Tefillin, he wasn't obligated to do them. The Talmud says he did them, but he wasn't obligated to do them. Bris Milah, though, he was obligated to do. That was a mitzvah given to him. He was obligated to do it. And that continues to us. So now, and it's from those verses that we learn the laws of Bris Milah. We learn the laws of Milah from there. So the Arach Chaim says, so why are we repeating this over here? Now, what's interesting to note is that from these words, we actually learn a halacha. It says, Ubayim Hashmini Mo Basar Lasai. On day 8, the bris milah is done. Now, what happens if day 8 is Shabbos? Do you still do it?
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Now, doing a bris milah on Shabbos, causing bleeding, is forbidden to do on Shabbos. So somewhere the Torah has to show us that has to show us that the Torah permits a bris milah on Shabbos. And the answer is it comes from this pasuk. It says, Ubayim Hashmini. And on day 8, that means no matter when day 8 is, the bris takes place. That's where we learn that on Shabbos, you can do a bris milah. So perhaps you'll say, says the Arachayim, that the reason why the Torah here is mentioning the bris milah is to teach us something that we didn't know before. It's to teach us that a bris milah can take place even on Shabbos. But the Arachayim counters that and says, okay, well, why couldn't we have said that there? Why can't we say it in Parshas Lech Lecha? Say the word, say the same. The Torah should say the same wording or say wording that at that point, the Parshas Lech Lecha, we can also derive that you do it on Shabbos. Now you may say, well, did Avram Avinu have to be told that he could do a bris milah on Shabbos? Did Avraham keep Shabbos? The answer is the comment says he did keep Shabbos. So the Torah could have said there whatever the Torah wants to say here to bring out that you do the bris milah on Shabbos. It could have done it there with everything else about bris milah. So why did it wait? Why did it do it? So why is it doing it here? So the Arachayim gives a very interesting answer, and the answer is he says is that to say by in Parshas Lech Lecha, which is when Hashem tells Avraham the mitzvah of milah, to say there that you could even do it on Shabbos, which means to tell Avraham Avinu that he can do the bris milah on Shabbos, is superfluous. It's not necessary. Avraham Avinu, without any question, even if the Torah would never say anything about doing a bris milah on Shabbos, Avraham Avinu would have to do a bris milah on Shabbos. Why? Shabbos. But the answer is that Shabbos Avraham Avinu is doing voluntarily. He's not obligated to keep Shabbos. He's voluntarily performing a mitzvah. But bris milah, but circumcision, that, as we said before, that's a mitzvah that was given to Avraham. He had to do it. So if you're in a situation, I have a mitzvah that I have to do, and there is a mitzvah that I do on my own. Which one's going to take precedence if they come together? The one I'm obligated to do, of course. So therefore, to go ahead by Avraham to teach us by Avraham that you could do a bris milah on Shabbos, that's not necessarily. It's not necessary. Avraham Avinu would, of course, do the bris milah on Shabbos because of the fact that that's his mitzvah to do, and Shabbos he's not obligated to keep. So he for sure has to do a bris milah on Shabbos. Therefore, the Torah needs to actually again mention therefore the Torah when it wants to teach us about bris milah can do it on Shabbos because we have an obligation to do bris milah and we have an obligation to keep Shabbos. So the Torah needs to tell us that bris milah can still be done on Shabbos. That's what this pasuk is coming to do. This pasuk is teaching me that we do bris milah on Shabbos, and it couldn't teach us that in Parshas Lech Lecha by Avraham, because by Avraham it would have been extra, would have been totally unnecessary. Therefore, by Avraham it wasn't mentioned. Only again later on, when the Torah is given and we have an obligation, and we have a mitzvah of Shabbos, an obligation to keep Shabbos, the Torah also now comes to teach us that you could do a bris milah on Shabbos too. Okay, so the Arachayim deals very nicely with what's the point of having this pasuk, what's the point of repeating the idea of bris milah here. But the other question is, but what is he doing here? Like, why here? Just because we mentioned the fact that she gives birth and she's tameh and she's forbidden to her husband for 7 days. Therefore, okay, so once we're talking about giving birth to a son, therefore now we go ahead and throw in about bris milah. So fine, we have a reason why we need the Torah to teach us something more than the Parashas Lech Lecha. But why do it here of all places? When our discussion here really is about the status the woman has after she gives birth. What status does she have? Is she pure? Is she permitted to her husband? Not permitted to her husband? Is she tameh? Is she tar? Is she ritually pure? Ritually impure? That's the discussion here. Why here bring in this idea about bris milah when it really doesn't belong here? I mean, it fits in time-wise, but it doesn't really seem to be the place for it. So the Arachayim deals with this question, and I'm not going to share with you how the Arachayim deals with it, but I'll talk about how a different commentary deals with it, the Be'er Yosef. The Be'er Yosef deals with the question as to why it's being brought out here in a very interesting way. So he starts off like this. We have to go back to the first pasuk. Pasuk Aleph, first one. that reads, actually, Pasuk Beis, verse 2. Daber b'nei Yisrael Lamar, speak to the children of Israel, saying, Isha ki Tazria, a woman that will Tazria. Now, we translate Tazria as produce seed, which means she gives birth. This is not a typical word that's used for a woman giving birth. The typical word would have been, as it says, v'yolda zachar, and she gave birth to a male. It should have said, Isha ki seiled, a woman that will give birth, v'yolda zachar, and give birth to a male. Why are we using this word Tazria, which means produce seed, to here? Why are we using that word, instead of the regular word, which is Leda, which would be Seiled, to give birth? So the Medrash says like this. The Medrash says that when the Torah says Ki Tazria, the Torah wants us to think about everything that goes on with giving birth to a child, starting from the point when the child is a seed. The Medrash goes through how, from the beginning to the end, from the point of when a child's seed is, so to speak, planted, when the seed when the child starts off as a seed, and then eventually the child is born. The Medrash goes through all the miracles and all the details that miraculously happen in the formation of a child. And what the Torah, and that's why the Torah says Ki Tazria v'yolda zachar. Torah wants us to think about from the very, very beginning of the child. When the very beginning of the child, when the child is like this, like a seed, just when it's very, very, very first starting, until the Yolda Zachar, until the child is born. Think about that entire process and appreciate the miracle of the formation and birth of a child. And when you think about that wondrous thing, then you get an appreciation of life. Because when Hashem does so many miracles from the point of formation until the child is born, that shows you how important, how precious a child is, a life being produced is, and that gives us an understanding and appreciation of life in general. But that is how the Medrash explains why the Torah chose the word Tazria to express giving birth, instead of using the regular word of Teled, which is a typical word for giving birth. Yeah. Well, it's a continuation from that. Now, there is a very interesting Medrash, and I'm going to read you the Medrash. I'm not going to work through all the details of the Medrash, but this is the next step for answering our question. All right. So there was a Roman general in the times of Rabbi Akiva. His name was Turnus Rufus. And he used to have conversations with Rabbi Akiva, philosophical conversations. So Turnus Rufus, that Medrash says Turnus Rufus, he's called Turnus Rufus Harasha, the evil Turnus Rufus, because he was a very evil Roman general. It says Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva, Ezoi Maisenoyim, whose actions are more beautiful? Shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God's, or Shal Basar Adam, or man? Whose actions are more beautiful? Who produces more beautiful things? Now, what was he trying to get at? You'll see soon. Omar Eloi, Rabbi Akiva said to him, Shal Basar Adam Noyim. People's creations are more beautiful. What people produce is more beautiful. Omar Eloi Turnus Rufus. Turnus Rufus said to him, Harei hashamayim va'aretz. Look at the heavens and the earth. Yachal adam la'asais kayetze behem. Can any person ever make anything as wondrous as that? Omar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said to him, don't talk to me about something that's above people. That's beyond people's ability to do. Let's talk about things that are within people's ability to do. Don't talk to me about the sky. Don't talk to me about things that people have no connection to. Let's talk about the things. Let's compare the things. Let's compare Hashem's actions and the actions that people can take. Omar loy. So Turnus Rufus had said to him, Lama atam mulin, why are you circumcised? You have something the way Hashem made you. You have something against the way Hashem made you. Something wrong there. I knew why. I knew what you were getting at to begin with. And therefore I proceeded and I said to you, the actions of people are more beautiful than what Hashem makes. Rabbi Akiva brought ears of stalks of wheat and gluskais and rolls, baked rolls. The wheat are the actions of Hashem. This roll are the actions of people. What's more beautiful, the roll or the wheat? Okay. Tunis Rufus said back to him, if he wants you circumcised, why weren't you born circumcised? If he wants you circumcised, if he wants you without the foreskin, why aren't you born that way?
Correct.
That's his question. Okay, so first, Rabbi Akiva says to him, first of all, he says to him, you know, that when a child comes out, the child is connected to the mother by an umbilical cord. And the mother has to snip it, has to separate it. So the first thing is that, you know, you see even from how you see already, right, that there's something about that the child's birth is not completed without the actions of someone else. Then he says, why doesn't he come out circumcised? The reason why Hashem gave us commandments, it's to purify us. It's to make us, it's to purify us through them. It's to cleanse us. It's to purify us. It's to make us holy. Hashem didn't have us born circumcised so that we do it. And by we doing it, we become pure, we become holy, we become clean from it. So why were we born circumcised? Because Hashem gave us a mitzvah. Because Hashem gave us mitzvahs to benefit us, so that we become better and holier people. All right, I'm not going to go here a whole discussion about what was the back and forth. But the point that the Ber Yosef uses is the final line, which is that, or the final point, which is we were not born that we're not born circumcised, so that we can have the mitzvah of doing it, and through that we purify ourselves. We make ourselves holy by doing a mitzvah, and we actually complete the process. The same way the mother has to cut the umbilical cord to complete the process, we complete ourselves through the bris milah, which Hashem gave us to do, so that we have the mitzvah, we have the merit, and we have the means by which Hashem cleanses and sanctifies us, which is what the mitzvahs were given for. Says the Ber Yosef, putting it all together now. Ber Yosef says the reason why we mentioned the bris milah here is to bring out this point. Because first the Torah says, Isha ki Tazria, a woman produces seed. And we said, the Medrash says, why are we using that word? Because the Torah wants you to contemplate and marvel at the birth of a child from the very, very beginning as a seed until the child's born. Think about all the wondrous things, all the detail, all the how everything comes together in such a beautiful and wondrous and perfect way, so that a child should be born. If the Rebbeinu Shalom made a child in such a, Hashem does so many wonderful things, so many wonderful details in producing a child. So why isn't he born with a bris? The answer is, it must be because the bris is not just about being circumcised, about not having the foreskin. It's about we doing it. The idea of bringing bris milah here at this point is for us to first contemplate. Look at this wondrous child that Hashem made. Look at this beautiful child that Hashem, and with so many details and miracles, produced this beautiful creation. but he left it incomplete. There's a foreskin on it. Why did he do that? The answer is very clear. If Hashem, or actually that's what the Torah is trying to allude to. If the point is that we have to contemplate and see what a kind of a beautiful creation, what kind of beautiful thing a child is, and we still have a bris milah to do, which begs a question like Trinus Rufus asked, so why aren't we born circumcised? Hashem goes through so much to go ahead and produce this beautiful, this beautiful child in all details. So then why aren't we completed with a bris milah? And the answer is because Hashem gave us the mitzvah bris milah, because mitzvahs are given to us to benefit us, to purify us, to make us holy. But this point is going to be alluded to by bringing bris milah here in this point. We contemplate the wonders of childbirth, and then the Torah throws in bris milah for us to think about, hey, if it's such a wonderful, beautiful thing, then why aren't we born complete without the foreskin? It's trying to beg the question, and therefore bring out the point, have us come to the point that the reason why we do the bris milah and not Hashem is because He gave us the chance to be able to have a mitzvah which sanctifies us and elevates us. Have a wonderful Shabbos.